if you look at where the real animus of the United States lies, it is towards Russia, China, India, and Brazil. And South Africa, by the way, though South Africa is less of a great power than the first ones that I mentioned. Trump hates the BRICS. America was not the trustworthy partner of India. India needs its own foreign policy, not as a somehow under the U.S. wing. That's absurd. I think if India and China get together, it's much safer for me as an American, a much more sensible world than the delusion of a U.S.-led world. I think the message from all of this is really the BRICS is India's friend. It is. Why? Because it is the basis of a new multilateralism. And China's not the enemy. Russia is certainly a normal partner of India in many different dimensions, in trade, in oil, in military and security, in the BRICS diplomacy, and so forth. Everything about the tariffs is wrong in that it's destructive for the U.S. economy. It violates international law. It is a breakdown of our political system in the United States. We have a constitution. We don't have one person rule. Under the Constitution, Article 1, Section 8, tariffs are the responsibility of the U.S. Congress. There's actually a lawsuit now in the U.S. Appellate Court which says that Trump has violated the law by imposing these tariffs. There's a real possibility that Trump's entire tariff regime will be deemed, as it should be, unconstitutional. Now, I have to quickly add that our courts are failing us in the United States. We are moving towards one person rule, so we'll see whether the constitutional order actually holds. Well, I think there are a few things. First, President Trump is delusional. He thinks he can make demands and that others will accede to it. That's a personal quirk, but it also is an institutional and cultural quirk of the United States more generally. The U.S. exercised a dominant power for so long that it thinks it can boss every other part of the world around. This makes no sense. It's not true. It is failing, but that is a belief both of Trump as an individual and the American political class. The second, it of course does relate to Ukraine in some way, which is that Trump thinks he can dictate the terms of peace. What he can do and should do is to say that the United States is not a party to this war, because the United States not only has been a party to the war in Ukraine, it has been the major provocation of the war. This war came about because the United States attempted to expand NATO and overthrew a Ukrainian government in 2014 for that purpose of NATO expansion. It's a long-term strategy, a reckless and failed one, and it should end. But Trump is not politically smart enough or determined enough or brave enough to end this debacle. So instead he's trying to beat up on India. There's a third part to it, though. If you look at where the real animus of the United States lies, it is towards Russia, China, India, and Brazil. And South Africa, by the way, though South Africa is less of a great power than the first ones that I mentioned. Trump hates the BRICS. Why? Because they stand up and say to the U.S., you don't run the world. The world is multipolar. We want to cooperate with you, but we don't want you to run the world. President Lula summarized it best. He said, we don't want an emperor. This is basically the point. Trump thinks he's an emperor. The U.S. is not the world imperium, though it thinks of itself in that way. And this is partly animus against the BRICS. I have said this for many years in India. I warned Indian uh, leaders, if I could put it that way, who said, well, this relationship with the U.S. is good, it's strategic, it's important. I was never a fan of India saying, for example, that it would be part of the Quad. I think this is a very bad idea. I think India is so big, so important, such a great power. It should say we don't ally with the United States against China. We have our own relations. We need our bilateral relations with China. We don't join a U.S. clearly military group that is an anti-China initiative. I think in any event, India and China need to work out their bilateral relations, because if they could get on a stable basis, nothing could be better for the world than a good, strong, positive relationship between China and India. So all of this, I was saying for a long time, don't trust the United States. Don't believe that India is going to slip in and to replace China in the global value chains. No way Trump would have that happen. Trump's a protectionist. India is not going to see a massive expansion of Indian exports to the U.S., even if they're merely replacements of China. Trump is a protectionist and an unreliable trade counterpart. So in any event, what's happened has surprised me because it's so clumsy, so self-destructive of U.S. objectives, but it doesn't surprise me from any fundamental values point of view, because from a fundamental point of view, America was not the trustworthy partner of India. India needs its own foreign policy, not as a somehow under the U.S. wing. That's absurd. India's right. Take a deep breath. Don't do anything dramatic. Don't get too vituperative. But I personally would do exactly what Prime Minister Modi's doing. He's flying to meet with President Xi Jinping. He's meeting with President Putin. He's meeting with President Lula. Those are India's real partners, by the way. Why? Not only is the BRICS plus the fast-growing part of the world, the more dynamic part of the world economy, but it's also the part of the world that says we don't want an emperor. We want multi-polarity and we want multilateralism. So I'm a believer in the BRICS. As I said, I'm a believer in India and China solving its real issues between the two. Because if there was strong trade, mutual respect, the settlement of the Himalayan border issues and so forth between the two, this would unleash a huge amount of economic progress, mutual investment, mega trade, tourism, wonderful things. And I like it because for the rest of the world, you'd have two countries that constitute almost 40% of the world population working together to make a new multilateralism, which I think we really need also. So I think if India and China get together, it's much safer for me as an American, a much more sensible world than the delusion of a US-led world. So all of this is to say, the real message is not vituperation and beating the drums and so forth. You know, I would be careful right now. Trump can change his mind, and the tariffs have not exactly gone into effect, at least as I understand it. There still is the summit meeting ahead, but I certainly would strengthen the BRICS relationship, because India's been a little bit cautious about that. Well, we don't want to get too close because America's our friend. I think the message from all of this is really the BRICS is India's friend. It is. Why? Because it is the basis of a new multilateralism. And China's not the enemy. Russia is certainly a normal partner of India in many different dimensions, in trade, in oil, in military and security, in the BRICS diplomacy and so forth. So all of this is to say, I would pursue active diplomacy. Fortunately, the India-China relations, I think, are getting on a better track, and I would try to pursue that. I'm saying to the Chinese, support India as the sixth permanent member of the UN Security Council, then we really have it made. Because then we really create the multilateralism that's needed. So I want China to reach out to India in the same way that India should reach out to China. But I think the message is clear. The Quad, I don't like it. Don't play games with the U.S. vis-a-vis China. Don't expect to be the replacement of China in the U.S. supply chains. Don't look to the U.S. market as the main export market for India. It's not. It's going to be the rest of the world outside of Europe and the U.S. that will be the fast-growing part of the world. Base strategy on that. Trump has no friends. He threatens. He could have followers. He could have temporary partners in something, but he's not even temperamentally, psychologically, someone who has friends. Even it's said in general of countries, countries don't have friends, they have interests. Trump's interests overwhelmingly are his personal wealth and global adulation. I don't believe, I argue with people, I had an argument yesterday with a very knowledgeable, interesting person. I say Trump has no strategy. He said, no. He's got backers who are thinking very strategically. I said, no, I don't believe it. Strategy means you understand, you take into account long-term ramifications, you look at the implications of your moves. To my mind, putting on this surcharge on India was as stupid as could be from any count. It serves no purposes, to my mind. Making an ultimatum to Putin when Russia is winning on the battlefield and when the war was provoked by the United States and when to this moment the U.S. will not admit publicly that NATO should not enlarge to Ukraine. Even to this day, they say it a little bit privately under their muffled voice, but publicly they won't tell the truth because this is a long-term U.S. deep state project. And this means to make threats to Putin under these conditions is not a strategy. It's not even a tactic. It's just a blunder. And so my view is Trump is not strategic. He's not tactical. Okay, he's president. It's true. He must have some tactics. I'm not president. He is. But I don't find what he's doing serving any real strategic interests of the United States, of the American people, or even being on the positive side. Now, that also may sound strange. Do countries do things that are self-destructive? Yes, when they don't know what they're doing. And unfortunately, the United States has not had a coherent foreign policy for even America's own interests, in my view, for many decades. America really was the unipolar power briefly in the early 1990s. Look at what it has squandered in goodwill, in capacity, in shaping the international environment. America is not dominant over the BRICS. It isn't. This is the reality that we're already seeing. The BRICS is a much larger economy in the aggregate, much larger than the United States, much more important in trade, much more advanced in many technologies, by the way. And the dollar dominance is going to end within the next 10 years, actually. The main way it's going to end is through internationalization of the renminbi, because that will happen and play a larger role. But that's not the fundamental point. The fundamental point is the U.S. is now maybe 14% of the world economy measured at purchasing power prices. It's something roughly similar, a little bit smaller in terms of international trade. It is not dominant in most technologies, though it's not bad in a lot of areas. And you can't, on that basis, especially with an erratic foreign policy, with a lot of hostility that it's created, and by the way, with a huge U.S. budget deficit that's not getting better anytime soon. So our own finances are in disorder. With all of that, you can't say that the U.S. is going to sustain the dominance of the international financial system. Technology is not hard to create non-dollar payments, non-dollar settlements, non-dollar financing. And I think it's going to come faster than people think.